Hello, my name is Shanna Norton, and this is my SeeMath case study. Just some introduction information. I was placed at Stafford Elementary in kindergarten in a generalist classroom, and Stafford Elementary is in Edgewood ISD on the west side. My student interest that I found when I did my initial interview with her is that she likes to play dress up, she likes cooking with her family, she likes gardening, spending time outside, she loves singing her ABCs, she likes to learn, and she's interested in science because she doesn't get to learn a lot about science in school. Some goals, concepts, and objectives that I chose are these TEKs. K.4b, students use meanings of numbers to create strategies for solving problems and responding to practical situations involving addition and subtraction. K.1a, apply mathematics to problems arising in everyday life, society, and the workplace. K.2a, count forward and backward to at least 20 with and without objects. And K.1b, solve word problems using objects and drawings to find sums up to 10 and differences within 10. So some of my students' strengths, I found that she had some strengths in problem solving. She was very good at figuring her way through things, even if it took a few tries. She would ask me for help, to repeat questions, or to break down what was being asked. She also excels in creative endeavors, though I did not take any pictures of any of those. She loved to draw, she liked to sing, she liked to play around. But since that had nothing to do with my SeeMath interviews with her, I wasn't able to record any of that because I tried to have my phone out as little as possible. The image to the side is a math problem where she did a really great job of problem solving. She got the question right immediately because she used the strategy of working as she read. So I read the problem to her, she thought for a second, and then she asked me to repeat it. And as I read the problem, she used her counters and placed them and took some away and found the answer as I was asking the question, so that by the time I finished reading the problem, she had the answer in front of her and had it correct. So that was really interesting to see, considering she's so young, that she had already figured out that that was an effective strategy to use when solving problems. Area that she might need support in, I would say word problems. Because she's so young, word problems aren't very familiar to her yet, and she still has problem actually reading them. So when I read them to her, sometimes I can tell that it's not really computing. She's having trouble concentrating, or she's having trouble with the verbiage, I guess, used in word problems. She has a hard time with the vocabulary used and the phrases used because they aren't as direct as she's used to. But she doesn't necessarily have problems with the math portion. It just is with the wording of problems, namely word problems including subtraction. I found that the main phrase that she had problem with was, how many more does blank have than blank? She didn't quite know how to interpret that into turning it into a subtraction problem. She didn't know it was a subtraction problem by hearing the word problem that had that in it, if that makes sense. Analyzing my students' work. I analyzed my students' work by assessing multiple types of math problems, especially throughout the problem sequence packet that was given to us by our math professor. And I took note of what parts she struggled with and what parts she excelled in. She struggled mostly with problems that are asking for you to do subtraction. Like I said before, this was because she couldn't grasp the way problems were worded. An example of this would be the problem discussed on the last slide. She did well with addition and counting, even in high-stress time situations like the subitizing task included here. So with this task, we were asked to show our SeeMath student an image of a subitizing image, and we were asked to show it to them for a few seconds. I did 5 seconds, and then take it away from them. And my student on the first try was able to tell me how many dots were in the picture. So I showed her the picture and I took it away, and she was familiar with the 10 square. So she knew that that specific shape, which is the 10 square, she knew that that had 10 boxes, and she knew that she saw one whole row and an extra one. So she knew just from being familiar with this type of chart how many would be in the picture without having to like specifically count each one, which I thought was very interesting, and I was honestly pretty impressed with her after this one because it was almost immediate. Identifying learning objective and reteach. To address the main issue that I found with my SeeMath student, I would look into reinforcing the last objective on my objectives list, which was K1B, solve word problems using objects and drawings to find sums up to 10 and differences within 10. I would do this by focusing more on subtraction. I found that if I gave her the subtraction problem that was associated with the problem from before, if I gave it to her just as a standard subtraction problem, so like 9 minus 6, she could give me 3 super easily. It was just the fact that she had to interpret the words that she did, and she didn't understand how to do that in her mind. So she didn't understand that the words used were telling her to subtract. Information on re-engagement and focused on students' needs. To address the issue with the vocabulary and word problems, I would pull Athena and maybe a few other students aside if they need it, and I would teach a mini lesson where we'd go through 5 different subtraction word problems and discuss what the different terms and phrases in them mean, while also solving each one together as a group. I would have the students ask questions about anything that needs clarification so that there's a much better understanding of what the expectation is with different word problems. When doing this, I would use scenarios in the word problems that interest the students. I would talk about things that they like. If the specific group of students love superheroes, I would bring superheroes into it. If they love food, I would talk about food, things like that, so that they're more likely to stay engaged. I would also make sure I have counters and manipulatives so that they have all of the tools that they can possibly have to give them the best opportunities to succeed. And I would also only pull students that really need it, but I would probably try to pull at least 3 so that they don't feel so pressured in like a one-on-one situation. And I would make sure that any questions that they have, I would answer for them, and I would make sure that I explain fully until I can tell that they understand and they can tell me what I told them in their own words to be sure that they completely understand the concept that I'm trying to explain to them. And in doing this, I think that it would help a lot with not only them understanding, but them being able to put things into their own words shows me that they fully understand it because they're explaining it to me like they would explain it to anyone else. So that means that they have a grasp on it in their own brain. Analyzing students and pattern of learning. The first step of this, I would focus on one specific issue at a time. Second, I would look for a group of students that may be struggling with this issue. Third, I would get a better understanding of how this specific group thinks and approaches the issue, strengths, challenges, everything in between. And then 4, I would use this information to determine the root cause for the issue and craft a lesson based on that root cause in hopes that when I teach that lesson, it squashes the issue entirely from the root of it. How will I use student work to analyze mathematical errors, confusions, and partial understandings? I will use my students' work to analyze any issues by being fully present in our sessions, checking for understanding often, looking for shown work on the page, and trying to figure out what is being done wrong that gives the student an incorrect answer. I want to identify which step the student is having issues with in the process of problem solving so that it'll help me to target and address the misunderstanding that may be causing the issue in the first place. This way, say we're doing 3-digit addition where you have to carry numbers. Maybe they aren't fully grasping how to carry numbers and they're using the wrong digit. I would see that in the way that they're showing the work or the way that they're explaining it to me. And I would know that that's the issue that I need to focus on in that problem. And that's what I need to target to fix the entire issue. This way it would be a little bit more targeted, a little bit more personal, and much more effective. How will you re-engage students in learning to address identified areas of challenge or need? I will re-engage students by finding a lesson to address the issue that has a different approach than the initial lesson. All students learn differently, and sometimes all it takes is to change the approach that you're taking for the students to start having light bulbs go off in their heads. I will make sure that I get an understanding of what went wrong in the first teaching of the concept and then come at it from a completely different angle when I reteach the concept to the student. This way, I feel like if I come at it from a logistical point of view, then maybe if I come at it from a more creative point of view, it'll get through to the student better. This will also help me get to know the student better and have a better understanding of their learning style, so that in the future I may not need to have the whole process of re-engaging the student. That way I can teach to their strengths from the jump. How do you use evidence of student learning to reflect on the effectiveness of your re-engagement lesson? I will be confident that my student is completely efficient in the skill that is being retaught when that student can explain to me how they got their answer in every instance that it is asked of them. I will ask them every time a problem comes up that is similar to the problem that brought attention to the issue, and when the student is fully confident in their answer and they show a well-rounded understanding of the concept, I will know my teaching was effective. So for this portion, again, it's one of the things where I will expect my student to say it in their own words and explain to me basically what I taught them just from their own mind and in their own words, so that I know that they fully understand the concept without me having to coach them through it, so that I know that they are able to be successful in that concept from there on out. In conclusion, the experience I've gotten in my kindergarten classroom has been invaluable. I cannot express how grateful I am to have been placed in the classroom that I was and at the grade level that I was. I initially thought that I would want to be placed with the older elementary students, but after being put in kindergarten, I can't imagine teaching the big ones. I just love the little ones so much. Obviously they're so cute, but also it's so important to mold their minds when they're that little, and to be the best teacher that you can from that young of an age can make the biggest impact on them from there on out. It helps mold them to be better for those older grades, and I would love to be a part of that process. It's completely shifted my thinking when it comes to what age group I hope to work with in the future, and I've gained skills and experience that I will use for the rest of my career. I can't imagine working with students that are much older than kindergarten, because I feel like the younger they are, it just feels like I'm making more of a difference. And I really, really enjoyed working with kindergarten, and I was completely shocked that I did. And thank you for your time. This concludes my presentation. Thank you so much.